Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. So, we have sued the federal government on First Amendment grounds, and I'm proud to be part of, just really part of a group of hard workers for which I'm, just participating. Janine Eunice of the New Civil Liberties Alliance has gotten together with Daniel Kotzen and Michael P. Senger. And myself, all of whom have been, are just several of us, we've been censored and or suspended by social media, along with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of others that are speaking out against the mainstream narrative, the government narrative that the government wants out there. And as much as I've been arguing that free expression goes well beyond the First Amendment, and I've got 50 to 100 moment videos in the last 100 or so, within this endless COVID season. The least interesting thing is, in fact, what's happening, which is that the government is violating our First Amendment rights. And so, the New Civil Liberties Alliance has come forth with Janine Eunice spearheading it, and has filed a suit against the Department of Health and Human Services on First Amendment grounds. And I'm, again, proud to be part of it. So we're certainly in a bad state if not only does the world have no tolerance for free expression, even privately, in its bottom-up manner, but if top-down we're even violating the First Amendment on the basis of, it's misinformation, then we're really in trouble. So our hope is that even though it's just three of us, this is not about us three, this is about all the hundreds of thousands of voices that have been silenced, and it's about the folks on the other side. When you silence the other side, which many of you are happy, oh, I'm so glad that they're silenced. No, you are being hurt. Everybody is hurt when one side is silenced. Because how else do we move towards the truth unless both sides, all three, all four sides, can discuss and debate and rise and fall on the merits of their arguments and data. Now, so as it stands, just because I sit in Ohio and it had to be declared at the federal court in Ohio, I happen to be the first one that's listed here, but there's no priority to me. It's just because I happen to be sitting in Ohio, whereas Michael and Dan are not. So it's Mark Changizi versus the Department of Health and Human Services. And let me just read a couple lines from it, which I'll... this is just a short press announcement, press release, and I'll post on freex.group and the Get Review newsletter associated with that, as well as my markchangizi.substack.com. I'll post the actual lawsuit itself, the 60 or 70 pages. I'll get that up there later today, and so you can read it yourself. So here is the case summary. Mark Changizi, Daniel Kotzen, and Michael Senger each had or have Twitter accounts, because I got permanently suspended, but then I got it back. But since then, if you look back 2 or 3 Science Moments ago, you'll see that, I was brought back, but I've been completely throttled since last May, when the Biden administration decided and told us we're starting to work with social media to make sure there's no misinformation. So, they just told us, hey, we're coordinating with social media to silence voices. And indeed, you can watch my graph go up in terms of my number of impressions every month, and then it just slowly subsides, and I didn't even notice for 5 months later, until I barely have any viewers at all because I'm so deboosted. So I still exist there. Daniel still exists there. Michael has been completely cut and has lost his voice entirely. So Mark Changizi, Daniel Kotzen, and Michael Senger each had or have Twitter accounts with tens of thousands of followers or more. And we hit way above our weight belt. I don't know how to describe this, but I know folks that had 10, 20, 50 times as many followers as us three, and we had tremendous virality because it's the nature of the connectivity of your account just as much as it's about the number of followers. So we really had a loud voice until Twitter decided, or the Biden administration decided to silence us. Their Twitter platforms provided them with a social network and an outlet to express their views, to hear the views of others, and to engage with detractors and fans alike. Outrageously, the U.S. Surgeon General and the Department of Health and Human Services have directed social media platforms, including Twitter, to censor alleged misinformation about COVID-19. The speech ban has included information the government later conceded was true, but that conflicted with the government's messaging on COVID-19 at the time. On March 3 of this year, the Surgeon General demanded that tech companies turn over information about individuals who spread such misinformation, a clear intimidation tactic that HHS has labeled a request for information, an RFI. In response to government pressure, Twitter has permanently banned Mr. Sanger and temporarily suspended Mr. Changizi and Mr. Kotzen, and completely throttled me, which is not mentioning there. The lawsuit alleges that Surgeon General Vivek Murthy and HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, whom NCLA has sued in their official capacities, do not have the statutory authority to issue this request for information. In May 2021, the White House began coordinating an escalating public campaign to stop the flow of purported health misinformation related to COVID-19. In a May 5th, 2021 press briefing, which I talked about in my Get Review, my FreeX newsletter, in a May 5th, 2021 press briefing, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki stated the president believes social media platforms have a responsibility to censor health misinformation related to COVID-19 vaccinations. That by not doing so, they were responsible for American deaths. And that the president believed antitrust programs were in order to effectuate this end. In other words, if tech companies refused to censor, they would face antitrust investigations or worse. By July, the Surgeon General and HHS ratcheted up the pressure by issuing an advisory on the subject, commanding technology platforms to collect data on the spread and impact of misinformation, and prioritize early detection of misinformation superspreaders, that's me, and repeat offenders, that's Michael and Dan and me, by imposing clear consequences for accounts that repeatedly violate platform policies. Following this initiative, Twitter began to suspend more and more accounts, some permanently. Between May and December, all three plaintiffs were suspended from Twitter due to their tweets about COVID-19. This sort of censorship strikes at the heart of what the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was designed to protect: free speech, especially political speech, much of which has later been vindicated as accurate. Adding insult to injury, on March 3 of this year, the Surgeon General issued his RFI demanding that technology platforms turn over information about sources of COVID-19 misinformation to the government by May 2nd of this year. The Surgeon General does not have the authority to issue this demand. The statute only gives him the authority to implement measures to stem spread of communicable disease. The statute cannot reasonably be interpreted to allow him to order tech companies to censor individuals with whom he disagrees on COVID policy, or to demand that Twitter hand over information about such account holders without a warrant based on probable cause. Demanding social media platforms, including Twitter, to turn over information about users that the government deems problematic constitutes a warrantless search in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. NCLA, it's the New Civil Liberties Alliance, does not condone every position taken on COVID-19 by those whose Twitter accounts have been suspended or banned, but by instrumentaling tech companies, including Twitter, through pressure, coercion, and threats, to censor viewpoints that the federal executive has deemed misinformation. The Surgeon General has turned Twitter's censorship into state action. The government's policy of pressuring Twitter and other tech companies to censor the plaintiffs should be halted immediately, and this request for information must be set aside. So again, that's the spearheaded work of Janine Eunice of the New Civil Liberties Alliance on behalf of us three, Michael P. Senator, Daniel Constant, and myself, but really on behalf of, and you know who you are, many much more influential, much brighter folks that have been suspended much more severely and permanently than have we. Somewhere in all of this, our hope is to really, by the end of this isn't about whether we're misinformation. It was Daniel and Michael and Mark doing misinformation is not the point. Right? None of that is the point. We believe we're right. We believe there was just mass hysteria and just complete irrationality, and we were trying to correct that. But that doesn't matter that we think that we're right. What matters and what's crucial is that the state doesn't have the right to stop misinformation just because they think it's misinformation. That's not how it works. Free expression is always multiple sides trying to find out what's true, and you can't just decide which side will be allowed to speak and decide what's true, because then you've decided what the truth will be rather than letting it occur in a decentralized manner. And this is a moral that all of us need to take, because this is really not about the government. Sure, this case is about the government. But if folks think that, oh, okay, now we finally got the government, if we win this, we finally have the government and they've been pushed back on their censorship, so we're fine. Well, we can go around still canceling people, and we can have, as long as Twitter does it without any coercion from the government, then it's totally okay, and no, you're missing the point. The way that we, and the way regular old people in society, and the way that even scientists move towards the truth is by virtue of letting misinformation ring. That's how it happens. I wish us the best, wish really Jenny and Eunice the best in this case. A lot rests on it. And that was your Science Moment.